Hey guys, Windsor here, and welcome to the Groove Guru podcast. And in this one, I was reflecting on a few topics. And when narrowing that down, the following theme popped to mind, which I want to read you from my notes and which I want to base this episode on. What we're really looking for isn't the stuff in the world. What we're really looking for is our true nature. And what happens is that we lose sight of it in time, but it's always available to see when we have the eyes to again see it. So, getting straight to the point here, we all live in the world, we all want to create certain kinds of results and we want certain outcomes. We want to, in the area of health, we want this to happen. We want to have the six pack. We want to be a certain weight, etc. In relationships, we may want to have the certain person and feel really deeply connected in our relationships. When it comes to money, we may want to be financially independent. We want to have the promotion. We want to do this kind of thing or have more free time. Though when we look at these outcomes, there can be a sense of when I get that thing, that condition in the world, then I will feel fill in the blank. And really, it's like any of those things that we think that we want, when we look at it, is often that the result we want is that we're going to feel happy or at peace or content or in a good space with life. And the thing about that, and as part of the work that I do, I coach and mentor people. It can be with music, it can be with more general life coaching, mentoring, whatever you can call it, to assist people in creating results that they want in their life. And I love being a catalyst and guide and container for that. Yet the result that we want, it's not necessarily the thing, but the state of being that we want. That feeling happy, the feeling contented. Now, getting straight to the point is when we think the stuff on the outside will give us that feeling, then that is something that can be pretty misguided, because how often have you achieved the thing? You may have set a goal or a resolution to get the thing, and then you get the thing, whatever that is, and then you feel that temporary, oh yeah, I've done it, amazing, and then a bit of peace of mind, and then it's, I want this next thing. And then so you go after that and you get it, or you might not. And it's what I'm going to point to is that we often look for happiness where it isn't. And what I want to point to in this segment, this video, this episode, this audio, is that happiness is where it is. And it's ever available to us when we know where to look. And the more we look in that direction, the more we realize that the stuff in the world doesn't need to be a certain way for us to feel that intrinsic happiness, that contentment that we're seeking. And that doesn't mean not to go after different things in the world and create different results and outcomes. Though when you come from happiness first, that changes the whole game. Now, so we look for happiness in things. And I'm saying that essentially that's not where sustainable happiness and contentment is. Because if we're looking for happiness on the outside in some condition that hasn't happened yet, and we're saying that until this condition in the world is different, then I am not happy. When I get the thing I want, when my life looks the way I think it should be in order for me to be happy, then I'll be happy. And until that is in place, then I won't be. Now, do you see the thing here? It's you're setting yourself up if you play the game that way, that you limit the happiness and the calmness and the contentment. And yes, there can be a delay of gratification that you may want to give yourself a reward. You know, when I have done the work, then I will chill and watch my favorite TV show or movie or whatever. And I don't want to get too sidetracked, though. It's all about realizing that essentially to find the happiness, you are what you seek. And you can live from happiness. You can live from calmness and contentment as your default. Now, the default for many people in the world is not that. It's not contentedness and happiness and love, connection, joy, and freedom. Okay? The level that a lot of people play the game at is this level that may be functional. They may have different things in their life and they hold these different things together. And you could say that many people have a functional level of consciousness at normal or as their normal. And whilst functional, it's not happy because we have all these conditions we must fulfill or these judgments and these things that get in the way of what it truly is to be happy. And as one of my mentors has pointed to me, you know, Windsor, if it's normal, or as I see it, Windsor, if it's normal, I don't want it. And when you start to look at what is normal versus what is natural, that can change the game. Okay? Now, at the core of this, one of the things that's normal is to misunderstand how this, or quote unquote, the mind actually works, which is what is the experience that we have, is whatever is in the world for us and whatever our experience of, you could say the world out there is, the only way that we experience that is via what our mind is doing or via thought. And that's subject to change. And often the same circumstance, the same thing that we might do every day, the same route we might take to go to our place of work, we may go the same route at the same time and see the same people on that route every day, but on different days our experience of that is very different. You know, some days we may feel, oh yeah, this is amazing, this is fine, I'm getting to go and do my thing, yay, life is good. And some days it's like, this sucks. You know, what are those people thinking? You know, driving in that way. Why are they dressed that way? Or why are they whatever? And it can be the same circumstance every day, yet we have a different experience of it. And that's the variable of the mind. Okay? Which, what I'm going to suggest is that any experience that we have ever in life is always what our mind is doing. And the vehicle with which we create this experience and experience our mind is via thought. And that happens in such a way that our thought, which is connected to our senses as people live in their body, they feel their thought, and that looks real to them. And the feelings and experiences that we have, it looks like that comes from out there in the world. And if you think about it rationally, it's, well, what do you experience? Well, if I'm thinking this, life looks this way. And if I'm thinking this, life looks that way. But if you ask a person, okay, where is your experience of life coming from? They might think that, okay, yeah, it's got something to do with what my mind's doing, but not many people really realize that. And what I'm going to point to is that when you start to realize that, that can really change your life quite profoundly in ways that, again, point to this experience of life of you that you are really looking for. Okay? Because if you're thinking, okay, my experience of life is coming from out there, like you may be driving to work and someone in the traffic, puts the brakes on too quickly and you're like, "Wah!" And you feel frustrated and it looks like that guy in front of you has caused that. Apply that to any other thing in your life, that whatever happens, the external world looks like it's the cause of your feelings. Now, the implications of that is that if it looks like the world out there is doing your feelings towards you, that this world that we live in is creating your feelings, then it looks like, in a way you could say, it's like you're the victim. As I feel this way because of that in the world. Okay? Now, things happen in the world. Don't get me wrong. But if you're thinking, my feelings and my experience is coming from out there in the world, then that puts people what I'm going to say, let's just say, is victim mode. Okay? But it doesn't have to be that way. And there's a much more empowered way. So, Common Sense Corner. Let's look at experience and where it comes from. So, if our experience comes from out there in the world, okay, to use an example, let's use the movies as an example. So, if our experience came from the outside world, then if you think about the movies and going to the cinema, okay, who of you still goes to the cinema? I'm still quite into that. I love it. If 100 people were to go to see the new blockbuster or whatever movie at the cinema, if the outside world was what created our experience, then all of those 100 people in the movie theatre, when they watched the same movie, they would have the same experience. But is that the case? No, of course. If you go to IMDb, you look at for example, or Rotten Tomatoes or wherever, and you look up whatever movie it is, for the same movie, you will see however many people have reviewed and commented on it, the same number of different experiences about the same movie. Some people can think 10 out of 10, this is amazing. Some people think 1 out of 10, that sucked. Meh, why did I waste my time? Some people say 6 to 7, 5, 6, 7 out of 10, meh, average. But the same movie was playing. So what that points to is we have this experience of life that we experience through thought and our senses, and it looks real. What I'm going to suggest is that that's not the ultimate reality that we have access to, and not the reality that we want to access to feel those deeper feelings of happiness and success and contentment that set us up to win and be at our best in life. So if our experience doesn't come from outside of us, where does it come from? Any thoughts? Well, it comes from within. Whatever we look at life and think, that looks real to us. Okay, whatever we feel, rather than that coming from the outside world. And yes, things happen in the quote unquote outside world, but our experience of that always comes via thought. And the more we start to look at life with this awareness that life is coming into my awareness and I'm experiencing what my mind is doing, we can start to wake up to that we are creating our experience. And instead of our experience happening to us from the outside, which, as I said, is like quote unquote victim mode, and we start to see that we are creating our experience, we start to live much more in the driver's seat as a creator and as in a much more empowered perspective via which to live from. Now, some questions in perspective that I often find really helpful, and the people that I work with find really helpful, is that whatever shows up for you, it's not what it is. It's not so much about what it is. No matter what shows up, my question is, what do you want to create? You may say, oh, this is happening in my life. This is the situation. That person said this. My bank balance is this. I want my health to be like this, etc. Whatever your situation, what do you want to create? Okay? Think about that. What do you want to create? What is your outcome? And the clearer you get on that, the clearer you have a direction in life that you can create. And that's a much more empowered perspective than thinking that life is happening to you. No, I'm thinking life is, and I'm suggesting life is happening from you and through you and as you. And there's a lot of empowerment there. Okay? And again, this is not just about taking action, and action's great. I'm down for taking action. Part of the professional work that I do with music, I physically need to play drums and I can't fake it. It's not like I'm on X Factor and miming along to a track. It's like when I'm on stage and playing, for example, with Hugh Cornwell and like I've done with Wishbone Ash, etc. I've had to do that and play the drums and make the music come through me. Okay, so there's work to be done to prepare for that. Now, when you start to see that you create your own experience, this is where it can get really liberating, is that we see that any experience that we have, that we think up in our mind, that creates illusions. It's very similar to when we are asleep and dreaming, that when we are asleep, we dream. We close our eyes and there is darkness, and when we're sleeping, we have dreams in full Technicolor, and it's a sensory experience that looks and feels real, can often be quite wacky, right? But it looks and feels real, and we wake up and it was like, wow. And if it's a nightmare, you wake up and say, thank God that was just a dream. And that's, we are feeling our thinking. We are experiencing and through our senses, grokking our imagination. Now, the thing is, that happens when we are, asleep and dreaming. But then when we wake up and we live our life and go about our day, that same process still happens. You could say we are dreaming awake. And whatever our dreaming mind creates up in our imagination and the illusion, which I'm going to say the what isn't, even though it's what isn't, we still feel it. But the mistake is we think it's what is, which is actual reality. And bringing it back to some two orders of reference is that we have that, we conjure up the illusion state and that looks real, but that's what we're thinking about life. Whereas what life actually is life without our thought content about it, or looking in a direction that's more pure experience. Okay? So we have this pure experience, this neutral, like when we were babies and before we learned to conceptualize, we have this pure, wide open experience. And if you ever look at the eyes of a baby, they are in awe and just this pure, 100% clear, perfect, unconditional love. And as the years progress, we learn to think on top of that. And again, it's what I said at the start, is through time, we learn to think on top of the pure identity that we are at core. And that what we are at core, you could call that your soul, you could call that perfect peace of mind, you could call that love, or your true self. But it's the illusion that we think on top of that covers it up and makes it look like that pure identity is not there. But here's the thing, it always is. And that always isness is always available to access when you have those eyes to see it, which is when you wake up to that you do thinking that takes you out of that. And hands up, if you're a human being, you're in that game. And fortunately, we're in the game that we can recognize that we can be the ones that think ourselves out of peace of mind. And thankfully, think ourselves back into that peace of mind, or not think ourselves into a peace of mind like, okay, peace of mind, peace of mind, peace of mind. I'm going to find peace of mind. It's not the thought content. It's not the content of what we think. It's the context, or not the what we think, but that we think. Yeah. And it's not the words about it. Like when you're listening to me, a pointer that I would suggest is don't listen to the words. It's what I'm pointing to beyond the words. It's if you're in a new destination or whatever destination you're in, and you look at a sign saying that, okay, to the next town, that's the direction and that's how long it takes to get there. It's not about the sign, but it's where it's pointing to. Okay? And when I'm talking about finding your true nature and a deeper experience of you at core, it's not the words I'm saying, but where it's pointing to. Which is ultimately when this gets quiet, and in those silent moments, which you could call pure consciousness, which there's no word for, that's when you start to find what you are truly seeking and looking for, which is your happiness. Okay? Because when you're looking for it, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? That's more noise in the system. But what I'm pointing to is beneath the noise, beneath the concepts. When we let go of our concepts, we open to a quieter mind. Even for a split second, if you can touch that quiet mind and silently realize it, no matter how brief that may appear in time, when you recognize that quiet mind, that inner, you could say godlike or love-like or bliss-like or peaceful, content-like nature, that's what you're looking for. That's the real you beneath your conditioning. It's the unconditioned, pure, true, real you. Another word for that is that's your wisdom. That's your deeper experience of life that you've always sought, that's always available, that's only ever one thought away, or only ever a feeling of presence away. And when you acknowledge that, what you can see is it's a space that is so practical that's actually possible to live from in a way that helps you be better at what you do. Because when you're in the thinking and you're really focusing and you're straining and you get quite serious about things, that seriousness is tension and stress and upset. And that's when you overthink things and when you get caught up and you don't know what to say next. But beneath that, when you start to live it from a quieter space, then the thought content that comes up, it just flows naturally. Thought and experience flow. And if you get a cloud of, oh, that's a happy thought, or oh, that's a sad thought, the color of your emotions change. But if you're not clinging onto it and thinking about it, then it just all passes gracefully. And the more graceful you let your experience be, then that affects your entire life, because we're always creating everything in the way that we are feeling, which is how the principle of thought is playing out in the moment. Now, I've said a lot here, and I want to keep this simple. And it's that invitation that to put you in the driver's seat whatever you experience, whatever feeling it is, it can look like, oh, this feeling, this anger, or this judgment, or this frustration, or this gratitude is because of a thing that happened out there in the world. And again, stuff happens in the world, though it's whatever we think about that is what our experience is. And the more we wake up to that, we are creating our experience moment to moment, and that our state of mind is all that we are experiencing in the body, etc. And that which we truly seek is available. Now, one last thing before I round this up is sometimes, and I get it, when we start to see that we can think up a bunch of experience, some pleasant, some unpleasant. Sometimes, and most people are pretty good at this, which is freaking themselves out. I've done that quite a bunch, and it can happen. You can create, like in your sleep, you would create nightmares. In your waking life, when you're going about your life, you can create, daymares, thoughts that freak you out. But the key thing is, you don't need to be afraid of that. And there's a great quote by one of my mentors and teachers, the Scottish mystic Sydney Banks, who said, if the only thing people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world. So, whatever experience you're creating, whatever you think up via thought that looks and can feel very, very real, no matter how scary or upset that can be, it can be like a trauma, because stuff happens in the past. We all have events in our quote unquote past that actually happened, and that in the moment can come up via thought and feel really real and really uncomfortable and put us into a feeling of sucksville. If we think that, we're going to feel it. If you think it, you feel it. Though when you start to see that all that you experience emotionally is coming to you via thought, and it's just an experience, and that if you don't think into it, it will pass like a cloud, and that weather will settle. You realize that you don't need to be afraid of anything that you experience. And just that little shift is life-changing. Okay? Because if you have some sucky thoughts about a thing that you habitually have thought in a way that puts you in not a very good state, and we've all got our own version of that. The first thing is that that's just what you're thinking up at the moment. And beneath that, when we let go of any of the noise, underneath that, as we've said, is that pure feeling of our true nature that, again, has no words attached to it. You can call it whatever you want: love, Buddha nature, God, peace of mind, tranquility, Zen, true self. That pure feeling is always there, and nothing can damage that. That is your pure mental health, the perfect sanity at your core, which is always available to access. And whatever comes up in your mind, it's just a phantom, it's a passing cloud. And if you just let it go, it always dissipates. And you always come back to feeling that purity at your core, which is your resilience. And again, that is your wisdom. Okay? That's where all your new ideas come from. From nothingness, the somethingness is created. So if you're watching this and you can recognize that, yes, I do the illusion thing. I think up stuff that looks real, but it's not real. It's not actually true. And beneath that is a truer, purer, less contaminated and distorted version of reality. Those two halves, metaphorically speaking, they come together and you start to see the whole of your psychological functioning. And you start to realize that your health, your peace of mind is always there, ready to access. And that thing that you've not seen because you've been duped by the distraction for a little while, you can remember that, oh, actually, that peacefulness inside me is always really there, always beneath the noise. And you can start to see that the remembrance of that, no matter what you're going through, becomes a North Star to the awesome feeling of being alive that you can always look to, which is really real and actually really exists. So, as an invitation, the second you notice yourself creating an experience, this feeling, and you notice, okay, well, this feeling, look not out there, but look within. Because that is where the contentment and the inner balance that you're looking for, that gives you the clarity to show up at your best and clearest and freest, regardless of any situation, is always available to you. So have fun. Listen to that wisdom and know that you are perfect at core, even when it seems unjustified with stuff in the world. And know that that truth is always within you. I'll talk with you soon.